Welcome back to the deep dive. You've probably heard that phrase in tech, maybe business too. Iterate based on data, not opinions.
Yeah, sounds simple.
Yeah, sounds like common sense. But, it often gets boiled down to just having a dashboard or something, and it misses the huge shift it actually requires.
Exactly.
So today, we want to cut through those buzzwords. We're going to look at what real data-driven iteration looks like, and we'll use Elon Musk's companies, Tesla and SpaceX, as our main examples.
Yeah, they're fascinating case studies for this.
Our mission really is to figure out how they actually do this day to day.
And what's interesting, right, is that Musk, well, he might not follow formal agile stuff like stand-ups and sprints, but he absolutely lives the core idea, empirical process control, using real results to guide what's next.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation then. You mentioned he calls it first principles thinking.
That's the bedrock. Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit? It's not just like a fancy term, is it? It sounds different from how most people operate, reasoning by Neil analogy, doing things because that's how they were done before.
Totally different. It's about thinking like a scientist almost. You have to resist the urge to just tweak the existing thing. Instead, you boil the problem right down to its fundamental truths. What are the absolute base level facts?
Okay, give us an example, like the SpaceX rocket cost thing.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
So instead of asking, how do we make our current rockets a bit cheaper? Musk asked, what is a rocket actually made of, like physically?
Right.
And by breaking it down to the raw materials, aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, you calculated their commodity cost. Turns out it was only about 2% of the typical rocket price tag.
Wow, only 2%.
Yeah, just 2%. And that fundamental truth, that data point derived from first principles, it drove everything. Bringing manufacturing in-house, pushing relentlessly for reusability. It led to an almost tenfold cost reduction eventually. It wasn't an analogy, it was physics and economics.
That's a powerful shift. And he didn't just have the idea, he made a process out of it. I read about this 5-step thing he uses.
His design algorithm. It's super practical. First, question the requirements. Are they really necessary? Be critical.
Okay.
Second, delete the part or process step, like aggressively.
Yeah.
If you're not adding things back in at least 10% of the time, you're not deleting enough.
Delete first, then optimize.
Step 3 is simplify or optimize the design. Step 4, accelerate cycle time. Don't make things take longer than needed. And only then, step 5, automate.
That sequence seems crucial. Don't automate something you might delete later.
Precisely. He says the most common error of a smart engineer is optimizing something that shouldn't exist in the first place. We're wired to solve the problem given, not to question if it needs solving.
Like that Tesla Model 3 example, the battery mat.
Classic case. They spent a lot of effort automating the placement of this fiberglass mat on the battery pack. Super complex robotics.
Yep.
Then later, they realized the mat wasn't actually needed for noise or vibration. It could be deleted entirely. Step 2 should have caught it. They automated something that shouldn't have existed.
Okay, so these principles, this algorithm,
Yeah.
it's compelling. Where do we see it really changing the game in the products themselves? Tesla seems like a prime example. You called it a data hub on wheels.
It really is. Unlike a normal car that, just gets older and maybe rusts,
Yeah.
a Tesla aims to improve over time. The millions of vehicles out there are constantly sending back data, something like 25 gigabytes per hour per vehicle, potentially.
25 gigs an hour. That's a ton of data.
It's huge. And that data feeds directly into their AI training, their engineering. It allows for rapid changes, weekly tweaks sometimes, pushed out through over-the-air software updates directly to you, the owner.
So it's a continuous learning loop fueled by real-world driving.
Exactly. Data collection, analysis, product improvement, deployment, constantly.
And SpaceX. They seem to take this learning from data to another level with their launch, fail, learn approach. Failure is almost expected, isn't it?
It's built into the strategy. Failure is an option, as they say, because it's one of the most effective ways to get, you can't get any other way, especially with rockets.
Right. Simulations only get you so far.
Exactly. Those first 3 Falcon 1 launches, they all failed to reach orbit. But each failure provided absolutely critical data about what went wrong, leading directly to fixes for the next attempt. The 4th one succeeded.
So failure wasn't the end, it was a data point.
A very valuable, if expensive, data point. And look at their software iteration testing constantly on what they call a table rocket, basically the guts of a rocket laid out for testing. They can push something like 17,000 software updates a day in that environment.
17,000 a day. That's incredible iteration speed.
It's relentless. That's data-driven refinement at an extreme scale.
So, okay, Musk might skip the formal agile meetings, but he embodies the core values working software, responding to change.
Absolutely. The loop is there. Create something, observe how it performs, gather data, analyze that data, and use the insights to create the next version.
And measuring this effectively, it's not about vanity metrics, right? Like lines of code or website hits.
Definitely not. Those measure busyness, not progress or value. You need actionable metrics. Things like cycle time, how long to get an idea to production, escape defects, how much quality are you delivering, maybe net promoter score, are customers actually happy, things that tell you if you're moving the needle.
But, all the best tech and processes, they can still get derailed by, well, by people, by the culture.
The human element, crucial.
You have to tackle the HIPPO, right? The highest paid person's opinion. That tendency for decisions to follow hierarchy, not data.
That's a huge barrier. If the boss's gut feeling overrides clear data, the whole system breaks down. You need the courage, organizationally, to let the data speak.
Is there an example of that going wrong?
Well, the Amazon Fire Phone is often cited. Reports suggest there was internal data raising concerns about its market fit or features, but, deference to a powerful opinion allegedly pushed it forward. It didn't end well commercially.
So it really highlights the need for, what's the term, psychological safety?
Absolutely essential. If people are afraid to share data that contradicts a plan, or afraid to admit a test failed, or afraid to point out a flawed requirement because it came from someone senior, then you don't have a data-driven culture. You have theater.
How do you build that safety?
Leadership is key. Leaders have to model it. They need to be vulnerable, admit their own mistakes, treat failures explicitly as learning opportunities, not reasons for blame. It has to be safe to bring bad news based on data.
So for listeners thinking about making their own organizations more data-driven, where do you start? It sounds like a big shift.
It is. You need sort of three pillars. One, the right technology and data infrastructure. You need to be able to collect, store, and analyze the data effectively.
Okay, makes sense.
Two, data literacy and training. People across the organization need to understand how to interpret data, how to use the tools, what the metrics mean. It can't just be a few specialists.
Got it. And the third?
Leadership commitment. It has to be driven from the top, consistently reinforcing the message that data matters more than opinions and supporting that psychological safety we talked about.
And maybe don't try to change everything at once.
Exactly. Treat the transformation itself like an agile project. Start small. Run a pilot project in one area. Gather data on how that goes, what worked, what friction points emerged. Learn from it. Iterate your rollout plan. Use data to drive the change itself.
Right. Apply the principle to the process of adopting the principle.
You got it.
So, wrapping up, iterating based on data, not opinions, it's really a move away from just copying what worked before, that analogy-based thinking, towards something much more rigorous, more like applying the scientific method inside your business.
That's a great way to put it. And maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. The real competitive edge today isn't just having data. Everyone has data. It's building and nurturing a culture where evidence consistently wins out over guesswork and hierarchy, where every setback, every failure is genuinely viewed as a chance to learn and get better. That's the hard part, but that's where the magic happens.